I've always liked driving at night. I know a lot of people hate it, the darkness, the loneliness, the way your headlights barely cut into the black void ahead of you, but to me it was always calming. There's no traffic, no honking, no crowds, no distractions. Just the hum of the car engine and the long, empty road ahead. That was before this night. Now I don't think I'll ever enjoy a night drive again. This happened in 2020, right before everything in the world really went crazy. I was driving from New Mexico into Arizona, heading toward Flagstaff. I had just finished a job in Albuquerque and was taking a few days off before meeting a friend in Phoenix. I had the idea that instead of taking the major interstates, I would take back roads, smaller highways, and the scenic route, as I called it. The route cut me straight through the desert. For the first few hours, it was beautiful. The sun setting behind mountains, the sky turning a mix of orange and deep purple, and then eventually the stars coming out, bright and endless with no city lights to dull them. But by around midnight, I was in the middle of nowhere. My phone had no signal, the road was dark, and I realized my gas tank was getting low. Now, normally, I'm good about planning fuel stops, but I had been enjoying the drive and just didn't notice. I had less than a quarter tank left, and the dashboard said I had about 60 miles before empty. Normally, that wouldn't be too bad. But out here, with no towns or even signs of life around me, I started to worry. About 10 minutes later, as if on cue, I spotted a road sign. It was so old and faded that I almost missed it, but when my headlights hit it just right, I saw it said, "Gas, 5 miles ahead." It was like a lifesaver. I followed the road until a shape appeared in the distance. Sure enough, it was a gas station. But as I got closer, my relief started to fade. The place looked wrong. There were 2 old-fashioned gas pumps out front, the kind I hadn't seen in decades. The canopy above them had holes in it. The sign for the station was missing letters, and the glass windows on the building were covered in dirt. The whole place looked abandoned. But the strange thing was, one single light was still on. It flickered above the entrance, barely illuminating the cracked concrete below it. I slowed down, pulling in cautiously. My first thought was that maybe the pump still worked, even if the store was closed. But the moment I rolled my window down, I smelled it. Gasoline. Strong. Fresh. Too fresh. It didn't make sense. The pumps looked ancient, rusted, like they hadn't been touched in years. Yet the smell was overpowering, like someone had just spilled a whole can of gas. I parked anyway, stepped out, and instantly felt that wrong kind of silence. You know the kind, where it's so quiet that your own footsteps sound like gunshots. No wind, no insects, no distant cars. Just nothing. I stood there for a second, staring at the pumps. My gut was telling me not to touch them, but I was low on options. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Not behind me. Not beside me. But coming from the darkness behind the building. Slow. Heavy. Crunching on gravel. I froze. My mind instantly started racing. Out here, it could be another driver. Or a homeless person. Or maybe even the station owner. But there was something about the sound, the dragging shuffle between steps, that made my skin crawl. I turned toward the corner of the building. That's when I saw him. A tall man stepped into the light. He was thin, almost sickly looking, with long, messy hair. His clothes were filthy, a ripped t-shirt, jeans caked with dirt, and no shoes. His bare feet pressed into the gravel, leaving faint smudges of something dark. But what made my stomach drop was his smile. He was grinning. Wide. Too wide. His teeth showed all the way back, like it hurt to stretch his face that far. "Need some gas," he said. His voice was hoarse, raspy, like he hadn't spoken in weeks. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at him, my heart pounding in my chest. He took a step closer. "It works," he said, pointing at the pump. "I can help you." There was something in the way he said I can help you. Something off. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't casual. It was almost mocking. I forced myself to speak. "I'm good," I muttered. My voice came out shaky. That's when I saw it. Behind him. In the shadows past the edge of the building, there were other figures. I couldn't make them out clearly, but I saw shapes, tall, thin shapes standing completely still. Watching. 3 of them. Maybe 4. My stomach flipped. My instinct screamed at me to leave. I turned quickly and walked back to my car. Not too fast, trying not to look like I was panicking. My hands were trembling as I reached for the handle. Behind me, the man spoke again. "Don't leave." "Not yet." I yanked the door open, jumped inside, and locked it. The man was now only a few feet away, standing by the pump, still smiling that horrible smile. And the shadows behind him, they started moving. Slowly. Walking toward me. My keys slipped from my hands as I tried to start the engine. They fell onto the floor, and for a split second, I thought I was done for. My breathing was loud, panicked, fogging up the inside of the windshield. I grabbed the keys, jammed them into the ignition, and turned. The car roared to life. I slammed it into reverse, spun around, and shot back onto the road, gravel spraying out from under my tires. In the rearview mirror, I saw them. The man and 3 others were now standing in the middle of the road, lit faintly by my taillights. All of them were staring at me. Not chasing, not running, just standing there, watching. I didn't stop driving until I saw lights again, nearly 40 miles down the road. It was another gas station, modern, clean, brightly lit, with a couple of cars parked out front. I pulled in, still shaking, and went inside. The attendant must have seen how pale I looked because he asked me if I was okay. I told him what happened. His face went white. He said the station I described had been closed for over 20 years. The owner was murdered there one night in the late 90s, and no one had touched it since. The pumps didn't even work anymore. I tried to argue. I told him I had seen people there, and I had smelled gas. But he just shook his head and said no one ever goes out that way. I don't know what I saw that night. But I know this, if I had hesitated even a few more seconds, I don't think I'd be here to tell you this story. There's a certain kind of silence that only exists in the middle of nowhere. It isn't peaceful. It isn't calm. It's the kind of silence that feels heavy, like the air itself is holding its breath. That's the silence I felt the night I stayed at the wrong motel. This happened about 6 years ago. I was driving through Nevada, trying to make it to Reno from Las Vegas in one day. That's about a 7-hour drive, but of course, I didn't plan well. By the time night fell, I was exhausted, and I knew I couldn't make the rest of the trip without stopping. The problem was, there weren't many places to stop along that stretch of desert highway. Towns were spread miles apart, and sometimes the only thing you'd see for an hour was sand, rock, and the occasional tumbleweed. So when I saw a glowing neon sign in the distance, I was relieved. It said, Desert View Motel, vacancy. It didn't look like much. Just a one-story building with maybe 8 or 9 rooms lined up side by side. There was a flickering office sign, a handful of broken-down cars in the dirt lot, and a vending machine outside that looked like it hadn't worked since the 80s. But I didn't care. All I wanted was a bed and a few hours of sleep. I pulled into the lot, parked, and went inside the office. The man behind the counter looked off. He was in his 60s, maybe, tall, with thinning gray hair. His clothes were clean but outdated, like something out of the 1970s. He didn't greet me right away. He just stared at me with watery blue eyes, like he was studying me. Finally, he asked in a flat voice, "Need a room?" I said yes, handed him cash, and he slid me a key without another word. No smile, no small talk. Just silence. The room he gave me was number 6. It was exactly what you'd expect from a desert motel. Musty carpet, thin sheets, and an old TV that probably didn't work. But at that point, it was heaven compared to driving any farther. I remember locking the door, shutting the curtains, and collapsing on the bed. I was asleep within minutes. But at around 2 a.m., I woke up to something that made my blood run cold. Screaming. A woman's scream. It was muffled at first, like it was coming from another room. But then it grew louder. More desperate. Help. Somebody help me. I sat up instantly, heart pounding, staring at the door. The screaming didn't stop. It went on, echoing through the thin motel walls. I grabbed my phone, no service. Of course. Out here in the middle of nowhere, I had no signal. I debated what to do. Should I open the door? Should I run to the office? Should I bang on the next room over? But then I heard something else. Footsteps. Heavy, fast footsteps pounding down the hallway outside my door. The screaming cut off. Silence again. For a moment, I thought maybe I had imagined it. Maybe it was a dream. But then I heard a different sound. A dragging noise. Something heavy is being pulled across the concrete outside. I slowly got off the bed, tiptoed to the window, and pulled back the curtain just an inch. That's when I saw it. A man. Not the old man from the office, but someone bigger. Broad shoulders, long arms, wearing a dirty white undershirt. He was dragging something across the lot. Something that looked like a person. It was limp. Long hair trailing in the dirt. I covered my mouth with my hand, trying not to make a sound. The man dragged the figure past my room, toward the far end of the motel, where the lot seemed to disappear into the desert darkness. I let the curtain fall back into place and backed away slowly. My heart was racing so fast I felt like I might pass out. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I just sat on the bed, clutching my car keys, staring at the door, listening. At around 5 a.m., I finally heard movement outside again. The sound of footsteps. Slow this time. Approaching my door. They stopped. Right outside. I held my breath. And then, the doorknob rattled. Whoever it was, they were testing it. Trying to see if it would open. I froze, praying the lock would hold. After a few seconds, the knob stopped moving. Silence. Then I heard the footsteps again, walking away. I didn't move until the sun started to rise and light filled the room. As soon as it was bright enough outside, I grabbed my bag, sprinted to my car, and peeled out of the lot. In the rearview mirror, I saw the office door open. The old man was standing there, watching me. Just watching. I never reported it. I don't know why. Maybe I was scared no one would believe me. Maybe I didn't want to admit to myself what I had actually seen. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear it. That woman's scream echoes in my head. And I wonder what would have happened if the lock on room 6 hadn't held. There's something about long, empty highways that can play tricks on your mind. When you're driving for hours with nothing but road and darkness ahead of you, your eyes start seeing shapes that aren't there, and your brain starts imagining things in the shadows. At least, that's what I told myself the night it happened. This was in 2018. I was 24, and I had just started working as a delivery driver for a company that moved car parts between dealerships. Sometimes, the routes would take me into the middle of nowhere, especially out in the Midwest, where the towns were hours apart. That night, my assignment was simple: pick up a part in Wichita, Kansas, and drop it off in a small town in Colorado. The drive wasn't supposed to take more than 5 hours. But by the time I was on my way back, it was almost midnight. The road I took was an old two-lane highway that cut through miles and miles of flat, empty land. No lights, no houses, no gas stations. Just straight asphalt disappearing into darkness. I was about 2 hours into the return trip when I saw it. At first, I thought it was just roadkill. A dark shape was lying in the middle of the highway. I slowed down a little, expecting to swerve around it. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't flat. It was upright. A figure. Standing dead center in the lane. I hit the brakes, my tires screeching against the asphalt, until I came to a full stop maybe 20 feet away. My headlights lit it up, and that's when my stomach dropped. It was a man. Or at least, I think it was a man. He was tall, abnormally tall, maybe 7 feet. His arms were too long, hanging almost to his knees. His skin looked pale, almost gray, and he was completely hairless. No clothes. No shoes. Just skin. And he was standing perfectly still, facing me. I sat there frozen, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. For a moment, neither of us moved. My headlights shone on him, but he didn't flinch, didn't cover his eyes. Then, slowly, his head tilted to the side. Almost curious. That tiny movement sent a wave of panic through me. I slammed my car into reverse, backing up fast. My mind was screaming at me to get away. But then the thing moved. It dropped onto all fours and started running toward me. The speed was unnatural. Its arms bent like an animal's, its legs snapping forward and backward in a way no human could move. I floored it, spinning my car around and taking off down the road. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely see straight. In the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of it chasing me, its long limbs propelling it forward at a horrifying speed. But then, suddenly, it was gone. 1 second, it was there. Next, the highway behind me was empty. I didn't slow down. I just kept driving, faster than I ever had before, until I saw the faint glow of a town in the distance. When I finally pulled into a gas station, I sat there in the lot for nearly an hour, shaking, trying to process what I had just seen. I told myself maybe it was a hallucination. Maybe I was too tired, and my brain had conjured up something out of a nightmare. But then, just before I left the gas station, something made me look at the hood of my car. 3 long, deep scratches ran across the paint. Like claw marks. To this day, I don't know what I saw out there. But I do know this, I've never taken that highway again. And I never drive those long, empty stretches of road without wondering if something out there is waiting. Watching. Each of these stories proves just how dangerous and terrifying isolation can be. Whether it's an abandoned farmhouse, a motel in the desert, or an empty highway, the middle of nowhere has a way of hiding things we were never meant to see. Which story scared you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true horror stories every week. Sleep well, if you can.